Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 11 of My Senpai is Annoying. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So it seems like it's just a usual busy day at the office. Although maybe a little bit, outstanding considering all those empty energy drink cans. You know, I don't think there's been an episode that I can think of offhand where there had essentially been like a big crunch at work. I mean, I figure if you've got something that sort of like takes place in an office at some point or another, you do have to, bring that up as a plot point or something. Yeah, I'm wondering where they're going with this. You know, some people are sort of praising Igarashi for her skills. You know, the chief mentioned a year-end party, and I would normally associate something like that with New Year's, but maybe they're doing something weird like the end of the fiscal year, or something like that. But either way, you know, this is something that's kind of nice to see. You know, the whole office getting together, having fun and all that. Although this is sort of similar to one of the previous episodes, where they were watching the cherry blossoms and all getting kind of drunk. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, this is interesting, you know, either I was wrong about the chronology of all this, you know, this is like a week after Christmas, or maybe Japan just celebrates New Year's at a different time. Because, you know, they seem to be referring to it as New Year's, which, as I understand it, is the end of December and the beginning of January. I mean, nevertheless, it seems like everybody's got some sort of a plan for New Year's, you know, be it spending time with family or whatnot. So it seems like Takeda's got a similar sort of plan as with Golden Week in that, you know, he's not really going to be doing anything. Interestingly, Igarashi hasn't really talked about what she's going to be doing. You know, I'd imagine she does have something in the way of a plan, seeing as how that's just what she's like. But she hasn't really expanded upon it, which makes me think, I don't know, that's going to be probably a focal point of the episode. I mean, if nothing else, Sakurai and Kazuma seem to be getting closer and closer, you know. Yeah, she's using the excuse of Yuto, but she certainly invited him over on New Year's Eve, which is, there are certain connotations one could pick up on. Okay, so it would seem like, based on what Igarashi's saying, she's not going to be visiting family since her grandfather's going on a fishing trip, which sort of implies that she really doesn't have much in the way of family, but also that, she doesn't really have a plan either. And there's sort of like a melancholy atmosphere about that, like, you've got all this time off and nothing to do with it, so, what do you do except sit around and mope? Can't say I necessarily agree with that perspective, but seeing as how everybody seems to be doing something, I guess I could understand lapsing into that sort of melancholy. Okay, so now the plot's thickening. Yuto just dropped a bomb. He's not going to be around. And Sakurai was sort of using him as maybe not a false pretense, but something to basically hide her naked affection for Kazuma. And now that Yuto's not around, there are no excuses she can make. Unless, of course, she decides to invite Igarashi over or something. Although, given that Kazuma has now showed up at the door, it's a little too late. Oh dear, indeed. It doesn't seem like either of them is particularly comfortable with this turn of events, but, they're just sort of dancing around the issue for now. Well, I guess that's fortuitous in a way that the food started burning, thus giving them an excuse to cease this awkward conversation. If dinner's basically ruined at this point, then, what else can you do but order in? I feel like it's the makings of, like, a vaguely kind of romantic episode waiting to happen. Now, it is nice that Igarashi's actually spending time with Natsumi, because, it seemed like she was going to be alone. Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly what Japanese New Year's traditions are, but if Igarashi spending time with her family was on the table, I feel like scheduling a fishing trip is kind of insensitive. I guess it's nice of him to sort of call up and say, hey, look at this big fish I caught, but, personally, I don't think fishing beats spending time with family if you love your family. Granted, I'm not much of a fisherman, so perhaps I'm biased in that regard. Yeah, it is getting to Igarashi a little bit. She's trying not to let it, but I feel like there's only so much you can do. I guess it is nice that Natsumi's around, otherwise, I'd imagine, she wouldn't be falling apart, but she'd certainly be moping. Of course, that said, it seems like she's probably gonna mope a little bit anyways, but I don't know, to a degree, I think just certain types of people get kind of reflective and melancholy at the end of a year. Just because, you think about all the things you did do, all the things you didn't do, but perhaps you should have done. Alright, so Kazuma is saying all the right things here. And in all likelihood, he's probably being sincere, too. He didn't come for the food, he came to spend time with her, so even if the food does get ruined, the food was just the icing on the cake, so to speak. Well, that was ultimately kind of uneventful. New Year's just sort of came and went. And, it's the new year now. I wasn't sure if they were going to sort of stay up until midnight, if that was actually sort of something of a tradition. But I guess, if nothing else, everybody seems to have gotten up just in time for the sunrise. Now, this is something I'm not especially familiar with either, but it's something I have seen before where, on New Year's you go to a Shinto shrine to sort of obtain a fortune for the year. I'm not too well versed on what the procedure is or what the sort of cultural underpinnings are, but I do think, if nothing else, it's interesting to watch. Now, naturally, given that Takeda and Igarashi are both here at the same time, surely, they're going to have to get their fortune read in terms of romance. And Natsumi's doing her part, Nobody likes a third wheel, so she's getting the hell out of Dodge before it becomes an issue. Now that is actually something pretty nice too. Igarashi decided to dress up and wear a kimono. And as I understood it, this wasn't necessarily part of the tradition, but for things like summer festivals, you normally dress up, or at least that's what I've seen. Now I can't necessarily comment on the virtues of Igarashi's wish, but if nothing else, she wishes that Takeda has a good year, so I suppose there's that at least. Alright, so I'm getting the feeling they are going to receive some sort of auspicious fortune, and one and or both of them is going to be very embarrassed by it. This is an interesting argument, sort of disputing the various types of fortunes, but I feel like Takeda is just plainly wrong. Good should be higher up than average, unless, they're using a certain word that translates to, good and or average, and I just don't understand, the actual connotation, but I don't know, I feel like it makes sense that good would beat out average in terms of magnitude. Yeah, she really is a character. She seems to be fantastically lucky, although, I'm not sure that it wasn't manufactured in some way. Alright, well, it's the moment of truth, I guess. Half luck. Now, I can only assume that means half as much luck as one would like. But that's purely speculation on my part. Alright, so it seems like they weren't as thorough reading their fortunes as perhaps they should be. There was a little extra bit about, the thing you're looking for is right next to you. Hint, hint, hint. But, I don't know. I don't take fortunes too seriously, and I'm sure I wouldn't take these especially seriously either. So, I guess I can't blame them for not putting a whole lot of stock in it, or reading it thoroughly. You know what? I take that back. Igarashi seems to be putting a lot of stock in it. Ooh, you know what? I was right. They are both sort of embarrassed about their fortunes. Igarashi's obviously curious, but doesn't want to share. And Takeda feels likewise. I think they both sort of got that bit about the person you're looking for is next to you. And, they're playing a sort of prisoner's dilemma right now, where they don't realize that they both have favorable information, and if only one of them would just fess up and admit it, they would both be better off. Oh, that's interesting. Hey, let's talk to this couple at the shrine. And, lo and behold, it's Kazuma and Sakurai. And they say they're not really a couple, but I feel like they're kind of full of it. Oh, that's interesting. It seems like they actually saw Igarashi and Takeda. And, to Kazuma's credit, he's not actually throwing them under the bus, saying like, oh yeah, they're totally dating. But, he is kind of talking up their relationship a bit. Oh, no. Oh, he's sharing that picture, isn't he, from the train? Oh, dear. Yeah, like Sakurai's even advising him, if Igarashi finds out about this, don't come crying to me. Maybe having this, be part of a live broadcast, maybe that's not a good idea. Oh dear, I think Igarashi is about to commit a crime on live television. Oh dear, indeed. Oh my god, she's actually doing it on camera. Good on her, I suppose, it takes guts for sure, but, I don't think I would want incriminating evidence of my crimes if I were in her position. I don't feel too sympathetic towards Kazuma. He was talking to a journalist. But I suppose things aren't entirely bad. Sakurai's taking care of him, regardless of whether or not he deserves it. Wow, that blow to the head must have done something, seeing as how he's being honest. Kazuma hasn't learned. Or maybe he has learned and that's the problem. Like, he's managed to make a failsafe for those embarrassing pictures. See, I wouldn't have pegged him as the type to do something like that, but I don't know if he's in a vindictive mood or what the deal is. Yeah, it seems like that was kind of the wrong thing to say, to a degree. I'd rather spend it with you than spend New Year's alone. I mean, I think a better way to phrase it would be, I want to spend New Year's with you. And maybe just sort of leave out the second part. I mean, Sakurai doesn't seem overly bothered by it, but, man, I don't know. That just seemed kind of callous. Maybe it's the subtitles. Oh dear. It seems like this girl's really just sort of grilling Kazuma for no better reason than because we need some kind of conclusion. So if nothing else, I guess she forced a confession out of him. Yeah, you know what? I feel like Kazuma's being kind of disingenuous here. I feel like you should kind of know by now that she's certainly more interested than not. Uh-oh. It would seem as though there's another embarrassing picture. And unfortunately, this one's probably not saved to the cloud. Oh dear, it seems as though Sakurai might have done something discreditable and that little girl caught her on film. Man, I feel like all these problems would be avoided if they were just a little bit honest. I guess it's pretty wholesome either way. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.